Hello. Here we are. We have Parnab with us, whose performance we just saw some time ago. I would like you to introduce yourself, and David would love you to call the theme of our meeting here, everything we don't know, but you know.
Very little. I primarily work. I'm based out of city of Calcutta in India, and the tradition of political theatre goes back almost more than 400 years back in Calcutta, which is a nerve center of classical dance and theatre activities in India. But over last decade, 10 years or so, my primary work has not only been in India, but also Southeast Asia, which includes Cambodia, Laos, East Timor pre-independence, and now Timor being one of the world's youngest countries, Vietnam, west of Thailand, which is also on the boil because the Thai Muslims very validly feel that they don't fit into the Thai scheme of things. Java and Sumatra, which are beautiful islands of great mythological and temple value. So this stretch primarily is where I work. It ends in a beautiful island state which is recovering from a very, very, I wouldn't use the word deadly, but disturbing war in Sri Lanka. The war is just over, and it's a war of people against the people. Two countries were not fighting. One minority community was in arms against the majority community, and what happened was, in between the two fight, like in all other fights, a lot of people who had nothing to do with the fight died. So primarily in these areas, my work is working with displaced, internally displaced communities, using theatre of conflict, and try to look at the fact that can their stories be told? Can their stories be exchanged? Can two communities displaced meet and exchange each other's stories and find out that there is a solidarity in sharing the story? And to make a play with the non-actors, just to shape their experiences, because they're so heart-rendering, so touching experiences that I don't think they need a director or a resource person. They merely need somebody who hears and puts some occasional full stops to their stories, which they are the best people to say and share, and not an outsider. So I primarily work in theatre of conflict. I'm also a journalist. Previously, I was editing an Indian newspaper. Now we run a theatre of conflict journal, which is called 5 Issues. The journal primarily publishes protest texts, theatre of conflict texts, texts of poets, dissident poets, exiled poets, Nigerian poets in France, Sri Lanka poets in Paris, Benin poets in Holland, Thai poets in exile in Indonesia. So I'm primarily a theatre of conflict worker and a journalist, and after resigning from the mainstream newspaper job, running the journal is my profession, and running my theatre group in Calcutta is not my profession, but it is professional, yes.
But how did you meet the theatre? And the second question after that is how did you meet that kind of theatre which deals with war and etc. things?
For me, it happened as a journalist. If you look at the geographical span of India, it's very interesting. India's largest state within the country, in purely by square kilometer area and by population, will be the 5th largest country in Europe. And my locality would have probably more people than a lot of nation states and areas, because we are happily, unhappily, overpopulated. In both ways it works. Happily in terms of diversity, unhappily because the diversity gets too much at times. But as a journalist, as a young journalist, when I was 21, I was assigned to the 7 states of India called the Seven Sisters. And the Seven Sisters, also called the Northeast of India, shares the single largest land border which any country has with China and with Myanmar or Burma. And these 7 sisters, historically over 200 years, is not exactly very happy with the concept of what we call as India. They're not exactly fitting in. They don't want always to break through and be a different country. But they're not also very happy with the structure that we call as India. So as a young journalist, there was a very interesting question when we went there. When I got down from the railway station train and I walked into the place, the first guy said, "Hi, how does it feel to come from India?" And we were scratching our heads and asking, but he's an Indian. So I'm an Indian. Why is he saying, how does it feel to come from India? So it gave a very interesting question. Either you fall in love with the guy because he has a different kind of strength, or in a very nationalistic, jingoistic way, start hating him because he's so against the idea of the nation which gave me my name, my passport, my visa. Happily or unhappily, I fell in love with those landscape. And as a journalist, reported the displacement for about a decade and parallelly worked in theatre with them. So a lot of my theatre is a little messed up with journalism. I haven't been able to define whether I'm a journalist who does theatre or a theatre guy who accidentally does journalism. It's a unhappy, happy confusion. I would think it's an happy confusion.
And you consider this the reason why you started with the kind of theatre we saw in your tonight's performance?
Yeah. Okay. Sometimes to take different community voices, not to define a geography, and see if there is undercurrent or theme running through these geographies, and they can bind together, if at all they can bind. So it's like mixing stories. The first story, Parable of the Post Office, comes from India's national poet, who's the only poet in the world to write national anthem for 2 countries, India and Bangladesh, Rabindranath Tagore. We are celebrating his 150 years. It's the UNESCO year of Tagore. In fact, we are celebrating 150 years all over the world, including, of course, India, because that's where he comes from. That comes from his story. So it was a tribute to a poet who gave us language, who gave us identity. And the second piece has a lot of writings of Gandhi interspersed with a story which I tried to say within Gandhi, the Buddha story. But Tagore and Gandhi, 2 of the people who are the pillars of Indian subcontinent, and when I mean subcontinent, I mean India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh. All the countries may be divided by geography, but are united by these 2 poets. So a Nepal guy or a Bangladesh guy or a Bhutan guy finds equal solidarity with Gandhi and Tagore as much as an Indian does. So in a way, the subcontinent where the bigger brother could be India, but not the only brother. Both these icons are the glue that stitches this subcontinent. They're great voices, very pacifist, non-violent, but courageous voices. Buddha, of course, he was born in Nepal, born in India, but now that portion is in Nepal.
Did I hear you correct? Bullshit, you said?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. But what's well, now this leads to another question. Why do you consider it bullshit? Is it because of how do you call it? Geographical reasons or what? Well, I mean, you said from